There are moments when you can be surrounded by people, friends, family, coworkers, even strangers who know your name and still feel completely alone. You can sit at a crowded table, listen to laughter, participate in conversations, and yet inside, there is a quiet emptiness that no one seems to notice. It's a strange kind of loneliness, one that doesn't come from physical isolation, but from something much deeper. It's the loneliness of feeling unseen, misunderstood, and emotionally disconnected, even in the presence of others. For many people, this experience is confusing and painful. They wonder why they feel this way when they should feel grateful, included, and connected. But emotional loneliness is not a personal failure. It is a psychological response shaped by experiences, beliefs, and unmet emotional needs that often begin long before adulthood. For many who feel lonely around others, the roots trace back to early life experiences where emotional connection felt inconsistent or unsafe. Some grew up in environments where their feelings were minimized, dismissed, or ignored. They may have learned early that expressing vulnerability led to criticism, rejection, or silence. Others experienced caregivers who were physically present but emotionally unavailable, busy, stressed, distant, or overwhelmed. In these situations, children learn an unspoken lesson. Connection is unpredictable and emotional needs are something you must handle alone. Over time, this becomes internalized. The child adapts by becoming self-reliant, emotionally guarded, or overly accommodating. On the surface, they may appear independent and mature. Inside, however, a quiet hunger for understanding and emotional safety remains unmet. As these children grow into adults, their early emotional blueprints continue to shape how they relate to others. They may become highly sensitive to signs of rejection, even subtle ones. A delayed reply, a distracted glance, a short response. These small moments can trigger deep feelings of invisibility or unimportance. Their mind begins filling in the gaps with painful interpretations. I don't matter. I'm not interesting enough. I'm only tolerated, not valued. These thoughts don't arise from weakness. They are protective mechanisms developed in environments where emotional security was uncertain. The brain learned to stay alert for potential abandonment, believing that constant vigilance might prevent future pain. Many people who feel lonely in groups are also skilled emotional observers. They notice shifts in tone, energy, and mood more than most. They sense when someone is pulling away or when a room's atmosphere changes. While this sensitivity can be a strength, it often becomes overwhelming. Instead of helping them feel connected, it keeps them mentally alert, scanning for signs of disconnection. Rather than being present in the moment, they are busy monitoring their social safety. This creates an invisible barrier between them and others. Even while participating, part of them remains guarded, preparing for emotional withdrawal. Another powerful factor is the fear of being truly known. Many lonely in a crowd individuals learned that showing their authentic self led to judgment or rejection. As a result, they developed a social self, a version of themselves designed to fit in, be agreeable, and avoid conflict. They become good listeners, supporters, and helpers. They laugh at the right moments. They give thoughtful advice. They show up when others need them. But they rarely reveal their own struggles, fears, or unmet needs. Over time, this creates relationships built on surface connection rather than emotional intimacy. People know them as kind, reliable, and strong, but not as complex, vulnerable, or deeply human. Being liked without being known slowly becomes another form of loneliness. In daily life, this pattern shows up in subtle ways. They may leave social gatherings feeling drained instead of fulfilled. They replay conversations in their mind, wondering if they said the wrong thing or shared too much. They may feel close to others in theory, but distant in practice. Birthdays, holidays, and celebrations can trigger unexpected sadness because they highlight the gap between social presence and emotional connection. Even in long-term relationships, they may feel emotionally alone, struggling to articulate what feels missing without sounding ungrateful or demanding. Technology and modern social culture often intensify this experience. Social media presents constant images of closeness, laughter, and belonging. Everyone seems connected, supported, and surrounded by friends. For someone who already feels emotionally disconnected, these images reinforce the belief that something is wrong with them. They may think everyone else knows how to belong. Why don't I? Yet what they see is often curated intimacy, moments carefully selected to appear meaningful, while real emotional struggles remain hidden. Comparing inner emptiness to others' public highlights only deepens isolation. Psychologically, people who feel lonely around others often struggle with emotional self-validation. Because their feelings were not consistently affirmed early in life, they learn to question their own emotional experiences. When they feel sad, lonely, or disconnected, they may tell themselves they're being dramatic or ungrateful. They minimize their own pain. This internal invalidation prevents them from seeking deeper support. Instead of saying, "I need more connection," they say, "I shouldn't feel this way." Over time, this creates emotional suppression, which further distances them from others and from themselves. There is also often a pattern of overgiving. Many emotionally lonely people become generous with their time, energy, and care. They show up for everyone. They remember birthdays. They offer help without being asked. They listen without interrupting. Part of this comes from genuine kindness, but part of it is also a subconscious attempt to earn belonging. Somewhere deep inside, they believe love must be deserved through usefulness. If they are helpful enough, supportive enough, and low maintenance enough, maybe they will be kept. Unfortunately, this dynamic often leads to one-sided relationships where their needs remain invisible. Emotionally, this kind of loneliness can feel heavy and confusing. It doesn't look like isolation, so others rarely notice it. Friends may assume they are fine because they are always present and smiling. Partners may assume they are emotionally strong because they rarely complain. This invisibility reinforces the belief that their inner world doesn't matter. Over time, this can contribute to anxiety, low self-worth, emotional numbness, and even depression. Not because they are weak, but because human beings are wired for emotional resonance, not just social contact. Healing begins with understanding that this loneliness is not a flaw. It is a learned response to environments where emotional safety was uncertain. Once this is recognized, self-compassion becomes possible. Instead of criticizing yourself for feeling disconnected, you can begin to ask gently, what did I learn about connection growing up? What did I need that I didn't receive? These questions open the door to deeper awareness and healing. Learning to feel less lonely around others often starts with learning to feel safe within yourself. This means practicing emotional honesty in small ways. It means allowing yourself to acknowledge when you are tired, overwhelmed, hurt, or in need of support. It means resisting the urge to always appear strong. Vulnerability does not have to be dramatic or overwhelming. Sometimes it is as simple as saying, "I've been feeling a little disconnected lately," or "I could really use someone to talk to." These small moments of openness invite genuine connection. It also involves choosing relationships where emotional depth is welcomed, not avoided. Not everyone has the capacity for deep connection, and that is okay. But you deserve people who are curious about your inner world, who listen without rushing to fix, who allow space for complexity. Building these relationships takes time and courage, especially if vulnerability once felt unsafe. But each honest interaction rewires your nervous system, teaching it that connection can be secure and mutual. Equally important is learning to validate your own emotions. When loneliness arises, instead of dismissing it, try responding with kindness. "Of course I feel this way. My need for connection is real. My feelings make sense." Self-validation reduces emotional dependence on external approval and strengthens inner security. When you believe your emotions matter, you become more willing to share them. Over time, as self-awareness grows, many people discover that their loneliness was never about lacking people. It was about lacking emotional attunement, both from others and from themselves. As they learn to recognize, honor, and express their inner world, their relationships begin to shift. Conversations deepen. Boundaries become healthier. Needs become clearer. And connection becomes more fulfilling. If you recognize yourself in this experience, know that nothing about you is broken. Your sensitivity, empathy, and depth are strengths, not weaknesses. They simply developed in environments that did not always meet them. With patience, support, and self-compassion, it is possible to build the emotional safety you once lacked. Loneliness in a crowd does not mean you are destined to feel disconnected forever. It means your heart is searching for something real, something meaningful, something honest. And that search is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of emotional intelligence and courage. Each step you take toward understanding yourself brings you closer to the kind of connection that doesn't disappear when the room gets quiet. The kind that stays with you, the kind that reminds you, gently and consistently, that you are seen, valued, and never truly alone.